Hi everyone, my name is Ananth, and today we're going to be talking about Chrome extensions. We'll cover why you should consider building one, what an extension actually is, how to make one, and in the next video, I'll cover how to build an extension using AI. The main reasons I think everyone should get into building an extension is because they're easy, fun, and very shareable. Easy, I mean, there's not a complicated tech stack. You can build one using vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Fun, you get to interact with basically anything that exists on the internet and follow your user during their whole browsing experience. And public, you don't have to manage any infrastructure, external database, or buy a website domain. Chrome extensions live within your user's browser, so it's completely private to them, and you don't have to manage anything to really share that with anyone else. These are some extensions I use in my day-to-day. For form filling on my job applications, I use Simplify. It completes about 90% of all job apps for me and saves me a lot of time. For my new tab, anytime I click on a new tab, I have this extension I built where I have a to-do list for today, this week, and this month. And for scraping or interacting with websites themselves, I built an extension that gives me a multiple choice quiz based on any web page I'm on. So for any article I read, I get to reinforce my learning by generating a quiz and checking it out myself. Now, what are extensions actually? At their core, extensions are simply small web apps that run in the context of your browser. They can either inject code into your web pages or run in the browser environment themselves. When we talk about injecting into the web page, it can be as simple as changing the background color of a website using some JavaScript and alerting your user. And running in the browser is where you get to interact with some of the Chromium browser APIs and define some key actions and run some interesting code. We'll cover this more later. Some common types of extensions include the UI on click. So when you click that toolbar of the extension icon in the top of your browser, that pop-up that shows up, we have the background or service worker that runs the logic and interacts with Chrome APIs for you. And we have content scripts. So like the changing of the background color, just code that runs in the context of the web page. Now that we've covered what an extension is, we'll get into how to actually build one. Every Chrome extension requires these main core files. We have the manifest.json, which is going to define your permissions. We have the background.js file, which will run the background logic and have the bulk of your Chrome API interaction. We have the popup.html/JavaScript, where you define your front end. And we have content.js, and this is JavaScript that will inject into websites that the user is currently on, things like that. And communication between all of this is defined by Chrome's message passing architecture. So this is one of the core and most important Chrome APIs, where we have chrome.runtime.sendMessage to communicate between all of these files. And this is a good visualization of what we just discussed. We have our browser application here, where the browser environment is in gray and our current web page is in red. We see the background.js runs in the context of the browser, while the content script.js runs in the content or in the context of the web page. And popup.js is communicating between the two using Chrome's message passing. And now that we've covered all the core concepts of what goes into creating an extension, we're going to go and build one from scratch. So for the topic, I've decided on a meme injector, which will cover basically everything we've talked about. And the goal is just to get a pop-up script and on the click of a button, inject an image into every web page we see. Now that I've made it to my code editor, I'm ready to get started. And I've created some of the files we just talked about just for the sake of time and filled some of them in with some boilerplate code. Whenever building an extension, the first thing you always have to do is start off by creating your manifest file. And this is what it looks like. It's just a JSON defining some key properties that'll let us upload our project to Chrome. So for this, we're going to fill in the manifest version as 3. Don't use 1 or 2, those are deprecated. Then we can give some metadata. So for our project now, we're going to do the meme injector. We'll give it version 1.0 and describe it. And now here we have to define in the permission section what Chrome APIs we're going to require. And here it's always best practice to put the most minimal permissions that we'll need so we don't use more than we have to. For this one, we'll need scripting in order to run our content script. And we'll also need active tab to get the query the current tab that our user is on. Now for web accessible resources, we're going to define resources, so the meme.png I have here, and make sure it's available in all URLs. Now here for action, this is what we're going to define as the on-click of our extension icon from the toolbar. And for this, we're going to use a default pop-up. So we'll render popup.html, and the icon can be whatever you want, but for the sake of the demo, I'm just doing icon.png. And you'll have to fill it in for these sizes, 16, 48, and 128. And finally, our background or service worker that we previously discussed is going to be background.js. This is just going to point us to our background script. And now that we have this created, we're ready to load it up into Chrome, but we won't have any functionality yet. So let's go ahead and create our front end. So here in popup.html, we just want to define the front end, or what will show when you click on the extension icon. So I'll just add a title and a button. And for this button, I'm going to give it an ID so that we can define some on-click behavior. And in the bottom of our HTML, we're going to include a link to our JavaScript. So now that we have our extension written in the manifest and we have our popup.html, we can actually load this into Chrome. And when we click on our extension icon, we'll see a pop-up that has this title and this button. However, we won't have any functionality yet, so let's go ahead and finish up the rest of the project. Now we'll get to popup.js, and here we're going to define the behavior of what happens when we click on our button. So now here I've added an on-click listener, and this is using an arrow function. We'll define what we want to do. So here, now we're going to finally get into some of the core Chrome APIs. We want to query our current tab and send a message to our background script. So the overall goal is to on-click, get the current tab, send it to our background script. Our background script will send this message to our content script, which will, within the web page the user is currently on, upload the image or just append it to the HTML. So I'll get the tab like this using const tab and use chrome.tabs.query. And here I'm going to specify that it's the active tab and of the current Chrome window we're on. Now we're going to get into some of the message passing that I mentioned before. We're going to send a message and communicate to our background script by sending it a message like this. So now we've defined our manifest, defined the default pop-up for when we click on the extension icon, and we added the JavaScript. So when that button in our front end is clicked, we're going to query the current tab, and we're going to send a message called inject meme with the tab ID specified. Now we're going to go process this message in our background script, and here we'll add a listener that will be ready to listen for all messages, and we can filter down to the message that we're looking for. So now that we've received the message and we're filtering for inject meme, we're going to execute our content script that we'll write right after this. And we'll do this using chrome.scripting. So now just to recap again, we've received the message from our background script, which is running in the context of the browser. We filtered the listener to listen for inject meme, which we just sent from popup.js. This background script is going to be our orchestrator and is going to execute the content script we're going to run in the context of the current tab ID that we just processed from popup.js. Now we can go ahead and code up content.js. So here we'll need to get the URL of the image using the Chrome runtime. And this was what we defined in our manifest. And now what we're going to do in order to append the image to our current web page is create an HTML tag image and append it to the body of the document. So I'm going to do that, add some styling so it appears on the bottom right, and then we're ready to go. And now I've finished the content script, and we've successfully retrieved the image from our local files, created an image tag, and we've appended that image to the context of the. When loading an extension into Chrome that we've built locally, you want to navigate to this URL here at chrome://extensions. And we want to toggle developer mode on. Once we do that, we can go to load unpacked and point to the directory where our manifest.json file is located. And now we have our meme injector extension here, and I'm going to pin it to our toolbar, and now we can test it. I'm at Wikipedia, and I'm going to click on our extension. As expected, our default popup.html shows up with our title and button, and when we click inject meme, we see our duck or meme.png right here on the bottom right. So just to recap, we built this extension by first defining our manifest.json to clearly and explicitly say our permissions and some metadata. Then we wrote our popup.html and JavaScript where we defined the onClick for this button right here. OnClick, we queried the current tab that our user is on and passed this message to our background script, which executes the content script in the context of the web page. There, we just create the image as an HTML element and append it to the page as we see right here. That's all for today, and I'll see you guys in the next video where I'll be coding a Chrome extension using AI.